In this lesson, we're going to take some time to look at how we can generate constructors for our classes. So once again, when we create a new class, we have the ability to generate constructors based on the object we're inheriting from. So if I were to select I would like to add a new class into my utilities, I can do that, and when I make my new class, I can select to generate constructors from the superclass. When I do that, we'll note that we essentially only get the default constructor because this class is based off object and there's no specific fields or anything to import. So let's go ahead and remove new class. We don't need it, so just go ahead and delete it from our structure here. And let's go into our encryptor class. And here we already have an encryptor method, but let's go ahead and just leave the comments so that we have those for our future reference in case we're trying to figure out how the code works. And let's just remove the current constructor. So now there's no constructor. And then let's make sure our class is selected, and in source, let's select generate constructor using fields. And here you can see, here's my super constructor to invoke, which is object, because I don't have anything else I'm inheriting from at this point. And what fields do I want to initialize in this constructor? I can select none, just one, or both. So you can see you could create multiple constructors. So maybe the constructor should be the first member of our class. So let's go ahead and do that. Select the first member. And the access for our constructor should be public. We can generate comments. Would we like to omit the call to default to constructor super? Let's go ahead and leave it in there so we see it. We can delete it later if we don't want it. And let's go ahead and generate this constructor. And place it up here, which is a little bit higher than we wanted it to be. So let's go ahead and just move that down here. And now what we see is our default constructor for our class has become the same constructor that we once had. It does have line to super, which we can toggle on and off should we decide to. So if we don't need that, let's go ahead and delete it. And here we're back to essentially where we were. Our code is now placed. Now one thing to note about this is it did name my variables the same as my local variables, which is something I definitely discourage. Maybe we could name this shift and this could be eopt. And then we could essentially place those variables in here and make sure that they aren't named the same. That just clears it up, makes it very easy to read, and makes sure that we aren't referencing the wrong variable based on a name. If we want to add the default constructor, we could do that as well. We could go ahead and generate constructor from the superclass, which is the object constructor, and we'll go ahead and insert this again. Let's place this after our encryptor, int encrypt options. That's our complex constructor. Let's go ahead and omit the call to the default constructor super. We don't need it. And so here we can see if we do that, our default encryptor really doesn't do anything. There's nothing in it, and it is essentially omitted the super call. So if you want to add that back in, you could, but that's our default constructor. Now we don't want this for our class because we don't want our class to run ever without the shift. So let's go ahead and remove that. But that's one way that we could very easily generate the default constructor in this case. But that wraps up our look at using the source menu to quickly generate constructors using fields and/or from the superclass.